Hello, this is Mike Swanson, and this is an episode of The Past American Century. Now, I listen to all kinds of Kennedy assassination podcasts, from Black Op Radio to the Chuck Cocelli Effect to Doug Campbell's The Dallas Action. And I was listening to a recent episode of The Dallas Action in which Doug was speaking with Kennedy researcher Rob Clark, and they talked about files that they had uncovered and read concerning David Ferrie. Now, if you remember the movie JFK, David Ferrie was played by Joe Pesci, and he's the guy that had the crazy eyebrows and knew Oswald and got caught up in all kinds of stuff, and was with Clay Shaw in the movie, and Guy Bannister. Well, boy, they have dug into the stuff in these files, and they found it is absolutely true that Ferrie knew Guy Bannister, but you got to hear it for yourself, because David Ferrie was not the nice guy some people portray him to be, but you'll see in this episode.
Let's talk about Uncle Guy. Guy Bannister. Guy Bannister. What a guy this guy was, huh?
Yeah.
Perspective and alleged handler of Lee Harvey Oswald. You know, I don't think there can be any doubt about that. I think we could speculate about Clay Shaw all day long.
Right.
Said it in the last episode with Francesca. I'll say it again here. Not entirely sure that Garrison actually had a case against Clay Shaw. Ferrie, different story. You know, Bannister, had he put Bannister in that hot seat, had Bannister lived, I think he definitely had a case against Guy Bannister. Now, here's the interesting thing about all this. We've spoken before, and I know a lot of people know the David Ferrie lore about him losing a very good job as an airline pilot with Eastern Airlines back in the day over some alleged sexual misconduct with teenage boys.
Fondalingus.
Yes, exactly. Coming from, and of course, and they were CAP boys, Civil Air Patrol boys, like we were talking about before. I didn't know, and you know, that's how far back that Ferrie and Bannister go, even that far back. As a matter of fact, did you know, and this was in 59, I believe, is when this happened. Not only did G. Ray Gill, even that far back, represent Ferrie in all these proceedings, guys, but guess who was actually called as a character witness during the court proceedings against and about and around Eastern Airlines? Mr. Guy Bannister. And
yeah,
I have pulled some interesting excerpts, Mr. Rob.
And real quick before we get into that,
yeah.
Just let me say that I've on this very show, I've come on here and we have talked about Guy Bannister, a lot.
I believe we have at least.
He had ties to the FBI, CIA, God knows what else. Okay, mafia, whatever you want to call it. But once again, we're back to the whole. New Orleans was a small place back then. Okay, all these guys knew each other. Jim Garrison knew who Guy Bannister was,
yep,
for sure. I mean, these guys all knew each other. I'm sure Garrison would have at least known of David Ferrie if he hadn't had direct relations with him before this whole assassination thing went down. The question remains, would Garrison have pursued Guy Bannister had he been alive? I think that's the interesting question. And what would have came out of all of it if he had chosen to, move in that direction?
That's an interesting question.
It might have been a whole different outcome.
I gotta think, yeah, he would have. But then again, would Jack Martin have been so forthright with information about the Bannister beating had Bannister still been alive? Later on, I may be talking, nonsense there, but I don't know. That's an interesting thing. I think, now I will say this. I think based on just what I know and what I believe, he probably would have come a damn sight closer to getting a conviction on Bannister rather than Shaw.
Well, yeah, I mean, the evidence was there more than it was with Ferrie or Shaw.
I believe so, too. I agree. Well, you know, you and I have talked about, and we've discussed a lot here tonight, some of Ferrie's personal predilections. We know what kind of guy this dude was. Pretty well a deviant, pretty well a degenerate, pretty well a pervert. That goes without saying. Now, we got to go back a little bit. We want to talk about this cat Landry, this kid, Alexander Landry. Apparently, he was one of the Cap kids involved in this thing this incident that got Ferrie tossed from Eastern Airlines and had criminal charges brought against him, at least for a time. And apparently Ferrie tried to intimidate this kid. That's the way the story goes, that Ferrie showed up to a grocery store in New Orleans where Landry, one of these minors involved, worked with two thuggish-looking Cuban tough guys and tried to scare him into dropping the charges. The kid told an adult, the kid told an adult who called the police. And this was after the whole thing with Eastern Airlines started. But Rob, I wanted to... Oh, you all right, buddy?
Yeah. Oh, you can hear that? I thought I muted my shit.
I'm patting you on the back, man.
We're getting sick this weekend. Hacking up a lung there. Yeah, I'm good.
That's okay, man. You sound like you got a fallopian tube clogged over there or something.
Yeah, it might be a few eggs in there.
It might be a few eggs in Rob's basket. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, write that down for the other show, Rob. Make a note of that one.
That's right.
That's right. But, Bannister, and here we go. We're going way back to the Eastern Airlines thing. How tight these guys were. And like you say, how small New Orleans was. And I guess, obviously, the shady character community in New Orleans was a microcosm of that because they all knew each other. G. Ray Gill, in what I'm about to read you guys, this transcript from this Eastern Airlines hearing about these young boys, and this guy that ratted his pervert ass out, Alexander Landry. But Gill is at this hearing interviewing Guy Bannister as a character witness for David Ferrie. Listen to some of this. Question. Gill, are you acquainted with Captain Ferrie? Bannister, yes, I am. How did you first become acquainted with Captain Ferrie? I was retained first by him and then by others to investigate the criminal charges made against him. Later, I was to investigate the charges made by Eastern Airlines. Would you please enumerate the charges from whatever source that you investigated? First, Guy Bannister, former FBI agent and New Orleans private investigator extraordinaire, says, I investigated the criminal charges. I reviewed the file of the district attorney. I found that they had no case, and I so informed them. I found that the child, Eric Cruchet, was not a stable individual and was the type who would frighten easily and under those circumstances do anything he was told. I have spoken with him on numerous occasions. He insists the charges of crimes against nature are false. Behind Mrs. Landry, who was apparently the lady who listened to the kid Cruchet and ratted on Ferrie, called the police. Check this out, dude. Behind Mrs. Landry, there was most certainly the influence of communism. So now it's a communist plot, Rob, to frame David Ferrie as a child molester.
Yeah, it always is.
Dig this. This is Guy Bannister. The tactic of the communist is the big smear and the attempt to place a moral turpitude label on those they wish to, quote-unquote, get. The district attorney who kicked these matters off is no longer in office. However, he and his executive assistant have held numerous memberships in organizations identified by the Congress as communist fronts. You see, Bannister continues, in defense of David Ferrie, by accident, Captain Ferrie stumbled onto something big that the communists were doing in this port city of New Orleans. In his patriotism, he meant to stop it. These charges resulted. You can almost hear his like overly serious melodramatic tone in the hearing room, can't you?
Oh yeah, I mean it's no secret. The guy was good.
Yeah. I also went into the matter of the so-called intimidation of a witness charge and the extortion charge. Cruchet and Cater, the two state witnesses, claim this never happened. Both persons insist that no such acts occurred, no such crimes were committed, and they made no such charges. So what he's saying is, yeah, they're telling the DA and Eastern Airlines and the police that it happened, but they told me it didn't. So there. It sounds like to me basically what his argument. Now check this out, dude. Rob, have other persons been interviewed in connection with this case and in regard to Captain Ferrie's moral turpitude? Yes, Bannister answers. Kindly enumerate them and tell me what you learned. And he basically reads off a list of 15, 16, 17 people. The only one that I recognize is Leighton Martins. And then there's three Leighton Martins, and there at the bottom there's three priests, dude. The Reverend Father Joaquin of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, the Reverend Father John Malahy, and the Reverend Father Arjonia. And every one of these persons, Guy Bannister says, interviewed regarding Captain Ferrie, regard him as just, honest, trustworthy, highly moral, religious, and in general, a credit to himself, his community, his airline, and his profession. This list could go on and on. It is only a partial list of those interviewed. Some of these names should be withheld at this time in case this matter goes to federal courts. Dave just informed me that I had a text message. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to turn Dave off over here. But, Rob, what do you think about old Guy Bannister's 1959, what do you call it, description of David W. Ferrie as honest, trustworthy, highly moral, and a credit to himself, his community, highly moral. Wow. Highly moral. I could have raped an exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to remember, all right, if he's mentioning Leighton Martins in 1959.
Oh, wow, dude, that means Leighton Martins was 19.
He was 18, 63.
Oh, wow, dude. So that puts him at, what, 13 years
14.
old?
Yeah, 13
no
to
joke.
14.
And the hell of it is, he's also got Mrs. Martins, Nashville Street, New Orleans.
Probably his mother.
Yeah, as being also having been interviewed and, stating that David Ferrie is a really, really good guy. There you go. That's interesting.
Fiddling her son.
Yeah, really, for real. And wow, dude. So yeah, so if he was 18 in 63 and 59, he's 14 years old, and he's a character witness. Yeah, Mr. Ferrie's a nice guy. He teaches me about airplanes. Me and this cat Lee. He likes Lee more than he likes me. Who knows? Hell.
He wipes my face off with a washcloth. He's done with me.
A Kentucky Fried Chicken wet nap.
Yes.
Did they have KFC
Something
in
happened.
Louisiana in 1959?
I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they did. They better have. Oswald, David Ferrie, and the Civil Air Patrol. Now, you know what we got here, Mr. Rob? We have the story, sir. We have the story about what happened with all this stuff. You know, I may have it. Yeah, it says 1958, 1959. This is actually, I guess, the affidavit about what happened with this Landry and their son Al Jr. And here we go. This is pretty interesting. There's some stuff in here that I don't know, man. Check this out. You ready? Mr. and Mrs. Alexandra Landry and their son Al Jr., although the source could not remember the names of the parties involved, according to their parents, their son had been associating with the subject, that's Ferrie, to the point where he had convinced him to be disobedient to their wishes, and Ferrie had made it possible for the boy to run away from home and go to Houston. Their parents said their son had met Ferrie through activities of the Civil Air Patrol. From information gained through discussion with parents and other children who were also in the CAP unit, the parents of the missing youngster had come to have serious doubts as to the legal status of the unit Ferrie commanded. They heard that this CAP unit was without official sanction. The source advised that before any extensive inquiry was made into the boy's whereabouts, he was advised by the parents that they had been successful in locating the boy through persons associated with Ferrie. Information was received by this source that Ferrie allegedly had taken and kept in his possession some films or movies that were technically property of the United States Air Force. Inquiry was then made to determine whether or not Ferrie was involved in the theft of government property. At the time, the source interviewed the Air Force liaison officer for the Louisiana wing of the Civil Air Patrol in an effort to gain background information concerning Ferrie. This officer, a captain whose name is not remembered by the source, advised that Ferrie's association with CAP was not legitimate, as his removal from that group had been requested and effected approximately 2 years previous as a result of several incidents which occurred in the summer of 58 or 59 during the patrol's summer encampment at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. So I guess maybe he fondled a couple kids on an Air Force base and got busted for it then. And dude, check this out, dude. On the occasion, members were assigned to various barracks. The senior advisors, squadron commandants, and officers were assigned quarters other than those given to cadets. Ferrie complained bitterly that he should be permitted to reside with the members of his group in their barracks. This was strictly against all existing policy. And when Ferrie continued his insistence that he be quartered with his group of boys, he was ordered by his superior officers not to stay in the cadet barracks. Shortly after this order, Ferrie was discovered living in the barracks with the boys in defiance of the order, and the ensuing uproar, he was ordered to leave the base. He then formed his own squadron without official sanction. The Air Force liaison officer told the source that during the subsequent inquiry by Civil Air Patrol and Air Force investigative agencies, several rumors were received concerning Ferrie's actions with the boys who were under his supervision. Man, okay. The first thing I'm going to say...
They were called Ferries.
Ferries.
Now, if you want to listen to the entire podcast interview that they did together, I've got a link to it right below this YouTube video. And subscribe to the Dallas Action through Spreaker, and you'll be notified when Doug uploads a new episode. And and buy my book, The War State. If you haven't bought it yet, you need to go buy it. You need to read it and learn from it. And I'll be talking with you later in the next episode.